We have entered the final phase of social justice. Now, why do I say that? Well, because the final phase isn't the end of social justice. This isn't social justice coming to an end and finally achieving a state of social justice. No, what this is going to be the continual destruction and deconstruction of anything that is something you can identify. If that can be identified, that will be deconstructed and deconstructed, and it'll be this constant roiling cycle. And the reason for this can be summarized in a tweet that was deleted by ContraPoints. And as you can see, this person who saved it was not happy about this tweet. This tweet must have been really controversial. Here's a deleted tweet that ContraPoints deleted and thinks she can get away with. Spread this S like wildfire so she won't be able to get away with it. Get this MF off the internet. Okay, well, what was the tweet? Gen Z people, queer people are hard to figure out. They're like, I'm an asexual slut who loves sex. You don't have to be trans to be trans. Casual reminder that heterosexuality doesn't make your gayness any less valid.
Who made ContraPoint so based all of a sudden? Did you see her last video?
No, I haven't seen it.
She even mentioned in the middle of it, like she was disavowing the socialists as a bunch of lunatics.
Based?
Yeah.
Welcome to the capitalist side, Natalie.
If you can lower this tweet, though, the one other thing in this I wanted to mention was in that text. Right at the top, you have, what is it, trigger warning?
Yeah.
Transphobia, homophobia. I love it. It's just the way
but the point that Natalie's making here is that the words have lost their essential meanings, right? They no longer correspond to an underlying reality and are not a representation of it. The words are now entirely analytic. They're just defined a priori without any regards as to what is happening in the world at all. You know, none of these things really matter. And we'll come back to this after exploring some examples. So the first thing I want to start with was Keir Starmer saying that chicks have dicks, right? So, and saying, of course, that means men have cervixes. This is a primary example of this because the word woman normally speaks to an essential set of characteristics, adult, humans, and females. And that's what a woman was traditionally. Of course, Keir Starmer is trapped within this insane world where the words that we use are no longer connected to reality. Reality doesn't have any influence on these words. And that's what ContraPoints is speaking to. Just like, look, they're just saying they're all of these contradictory things all at once. Well, yeah, this is what the woke millennials have done to Generation Z. You have provided them with an inability to form a sort of organized structure of reality, and so anything can be defined to be its antonym at any time. All of the definitions have been expanded to include their opposites, and that's why Keir Starmer is sat here going, yeah, it's wrong to say that women have a cervix. Well, by what standard, Keir? You know, by the standard of insane wokeness that doesn't believe in reality, maybe. But
trans women are women, asexual sluts are sluts.
Yeah, exactly. You know, is that your standard, Kit? And if it is, why? Why is it your standard? And do us a favour and just quickly define woman for me. I'd really love to hear your definition. But anyway, yeah. So this carried on, right? I'll move on quickly because you've covered a lot of the stuff I was going to cover. Go to the next one, Pink News, right? So it was Rosie Duffield, as you say, was essentially prevented from coming to this conference because she was public about her gender critical views, as in she thought that the term woman had a connection to the biological reality of what a human being, a female human being is. And the one of the major crimes that she had committed was liking a tweet from anti-trans campaigner Maya Forstater. Again, not sure she's anti-trans. Think she might just be like, look, I think there's an essential definition here that we might need to use. But she was exiled, basically, and this is the TERFs getting absolutely stomped on by the intersectionals.
She's on trial, isn't she?
She is currently on trial, yeah, for posting the suffragette ribbon that was supposed to be a noose.
But obviously isn't.
Threat. No, obviously isn't. Yeah. It's just absurd. But these are the places you end up in if you end up disconnecting the words you use from the reality that you're meant to be trying to describe. Anyway, so Sajid Javid weighed in on this, burst in like an absolute titan. Total denial of scientific fact, and he wants to run the NHS. Well, I mean, I agree with Sajid, of course. Obviously, women don't have cervixes.
I'm just suspicious of Sajid. I know you say his name.
Sajid.
Yeah, at this point, because of his baseness, and then when he got kicked out of government, he was like, yeah, BLM. I was like,
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say he's not an opportunistic Tory. Because he
I don't
obviously
know,
is.
But it just...
But you'd think this was a hill that you could die on, but the NHS is not going to die on this hill. They don't think that gender dysphoria is a mental illness. They don't think it's a disorder. As they say in here, many people with gender dysphoria have a strong, lasting desire to live a life that matches their expressed gender identity. They do this by changing the way they look and behave. Some people with gender dysphoria, but not all, may want to use hormones and sometimes surgery to express their gender identity. And those people who are not all we saw at the Labour conference. Gender dysphoria is not a mental illness, but some people may develop mental health problems because of gender dysphoria. Right, so there we go. According to the NHS, gender dysphoria is not a mental illness. Well, when did this change? This changed in 2018, when the World Health Organization decided they weren't going to consider it a mental health disorder either. And so this was renamed, removed the term gender dysphoria as a mental health disorder and renamed it as a gender incongruence.
I don't know, what the hell does that even mean?
It means disorder.
Right.
It's just a politically correct way of saying it. But the point is, it's not considered a mental health disorder now, and that's why the NHS doesn't list it as one. But thankfully, again, this is why Josh is such a useful fellow to have around. He sent me a screenshot from the ICD-10, the diagnostic manual that is used by clinical psychologists in the UK, and they think it's a disorder. As they say, for this diagnosis to be made, the transsexual identity must have been persistent presently for 2 years, must not be a symptom of another mental disorder. And they say disorders, gender identity disorder of childhood. Disorders usually manifest in early childhood, characterized by persistent and intense distress about the assigned sex, together with the desire of the other sex. There is a persistent preoccupation with dress and or activities of the opposite sex and a repudiation of the patient's own sex. These disorders are thought to be relatively uncommon and should not be confused with much more frequent nonconformity with stereotypical sex role behavior. So this is, as far as the psychologists are concerned, a disorder, but as far as the NHS is considered, not a disorder. Thankfully, though, Tom Harwood was around to chime in with the official GB News position on this. Many trans men have cervixes, really not hard to acknowledge. If Keir Starmer had simply said those words, his answer wouldn't have sounded so odd. Instead, he chose to obfuscate, failed to explain, and consequently sounded baffling and ambiguous. That's right, I'm a conservative.
Trans men have cervixes. So that's women who want to be men, they have cervixes.
Yes.
Does it work in reverse, Mr. Harwood?
It's just a long-winded way of saying women have cervixes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Tom, remember, though, does believe that a trans woman is a woman, so he is officially politically orthodox when it comes to left-wing politics.
DC Dimmy.
The problem, I would have said, is he thinks of himself as a conservative. How he does that, if a trans woman is a woman, Tom, what is a woman? Just define it for me. I await your answer. Anyway, moving on. This is where... So you've completely disconnected the term woman from any kind of essentiality. And of course, that means you have to pathologize anything that lies outside of this. In 2019, the official guidelines for the American Psychological Association labeled traditional masculinity as harmful. This is something I'm going to come back to in greater depth, because I only learned about this today. This was very interesting. But citing more than 40 years of research, the APA warns that masculinity ideology, which sounds based,
Sorry, what?
masculinity ideology, right? So this is traditional masculinity marked by stoicism, competitivism, dominance and aggression is on the whole harmful. That is on the whole absolutely awesome. And we will be promoting that later on. But the point is, it doesn't matter that these things are, again, essentially contained and connected to what it is to be a man, right? You have to adopt these kinds of ways of thinking if you are, of course, a man. If you want to be a man, but that's something that's biological, again, connected to being an adult human male. So now we've totally dissociated these words from their essential meanings. Everything is up in the air and everything can be attacked in any kind of nonsensical way. For example, you can have lesbians against women. Just lesbians against straight women. How dare you come to our bars?
Yeah, we are lesbians who want to have sex with men.
Yes. Well, you get that as well. I should have got that up as an example. But there were lots of these, of course. But this was just an amusing one where it was like a bunch of lesbians were complaining they went into a gay bar and propositioned a bunch of women, and women were like, oh, I'm straight. Like, okay, sucks for you.
I was thinking more about the
I should have had that, yeah.
The new movement of like, yes, there are lesbians who want to have sex with just men and only men.
Yeah, lesbians that love penis.
Right. Makes
sense. Moving on. The white feminists are being attacked by other women. There can only be one winner, men. I think as winners go, men have successfully lost this war. I don't think women are...
The only combatants in the war left are women.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the trans women, who are definitely women. The men are definitely out of this. But so this is about white feminism, the branch of non-intersectional feminism that is called white feminism is being attacked by the intersectional feminists, and that means that women are turning on women. Lazy polemics about terrible white feminism empower men to use the fact that all white women are supposedly high up on the privileged pecking order to tell middle-aged women to shut up, or even worse, accusing them of weaponizing their abuse or trauma. It doesn't help women of color either. It implicitly posits Asian male crime against women as somehow lesser than white male crime, blah, blah, blah. You can see the roiling competitiveness, and this just carries on in a downward spiral. And you're not allowed to define yourself in any essentialist way either, because as you may remember, our good buddy, I don't know who this chap was actually. What was his name? If we can go to the next one. The chap who defined himself as super straight. This guy had to delete his TikTok account because he got in a lot of trouble for this viral video.
Kyle Royce, I can see.
Kyle Royce, that was it. He wanted to say, well, look, I want to only date the opposite gender who was born as the opposite gender. As in, I want to date someone who's female.
That's my sexual preference.
That's my sexual preference. And one user turned around and said, hang on a second. Super straight means you think that men who date trans women are less straight, meaning that trans women are men and therefore not real women, which is not only transphobic but scientifically inaccurate. Oh yeah, show me your cervixes. Sorry, scientifically inaccurate. I don't think you want to bring science into this because we're in the realm of pure ideology here, right? So absolutely not, right? And
I love CJ.
I do as well, even though he's a bloody stupid commie.
He's just a funny guy.
He is. He's likable. He says, this is really silly because you're claiming to be super straight. You like women, but you're excluding an entire group of women. You're excluding an entire group of women because we have defined them as women because the definitions don't matter anymore. But he goes on to give this amazing analogy, right? If a plumber only works on shower drains and refuses to work on sinks, we don't call him a super plumber. No, but we don't say that the sinks are shower drains, do we? The sink and the shower drain are two separate things.
What if the sink and shower drains do become the same thing, and then I only work on showers?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So it's ridiculous. So anyway, returning back to ContraPoints' tweet. Now, what disappoints me about ContraPoints is that she's a very well-educated person and is philosophically equipped to be able to identify all of this, and yet doesn't. And so I find that embarrassing. But she posts basically, if we go to the next one, a treatise on Twitter saying, well, look, I shouldn't have opened my mouth because I knew what a group of lunatics you all are. And of course, you're going to try and hurt me because I don't understand how you've got to this point. And she says, I'm not saying they aren't valid. I've never been big on deciding what is valid. It's just basic logical propositions. But anyway, if you're a horny asexual who loves to F, by all means continue with my maternal blessing. But surely you see that, to most people, the statement, I'm a horny asexual who loves to F, is at face value confusing, contradictory, and in so many words, hard to figure out. Sometimes I get the sense that people that say these things are in part because they enjoy the provocation of the seeming contradiction. But maybe I'm wrong. Just to be safe, I'm going to use my platform to explore what these means. And then she carries on, like, coping hard, saying, well, look, maybe what you mean is sometimes straight people have gay sex just to get off. It's a thing. Is it? You ever been so horny you had sex with a man, Callum?
No. You?
No.
Oh.
It makes sense that some people who never experience sexual attraction might enjoy having sex. And in such case, they could aptly be described as horny asexuals who love to F. I have a master's in philosophy.
Wait, sorry. What?
That's literally it. Just as that at the end. I have a master's in philosophy. Yeah, well, I mean, that...
I'm sorry.
That's a big cope.
You don't need a master's in philosophy to understand that a thing can't be its opposite.
Yes.
It's that simple.
The contradiction will continue in tension until you attempt to resolve it. Anyway... She carries on. I'm straight now, but still gay. Sounds like you're describing some kind of sexual identity quantum superposition. Yes, that's because that's what they're doing. I feel a twinge of irritation, probably because I feel that this kind of fluidity is not available to gay trans people. Oh yeah, that's the real problem. It's not that they're literally engaging in doublethink ContraPoints. It's that you don't have the kind of fluidity that's available to these insane Gen Zers who you and your generation have completely confused out of believing that things exist in the real world and can be defined. That's the problem.
No, the harms by dating prospects.
Yes.
Makes the situation more complex.
Don't get me wrong, all of these people have got terrible dating prospects, so maybe that is a genuine concern for them. But it's not a genuine concern for
Do
me.
they have dating prospects when they're like, yes, I'm straight, but really gay? And it's like, well...
God only knows.
Because if it's the antonym, then literally, it's like, go up to women, yeah, don't worry, I'm straight, but I'm gay.
Try it in the gay clubs, when all the women are like, they're straight, and they're like, so am I. Let's have sex. Like, who knows? Anyway, but she goes on to say, the next one, God, I'm depressed. Yep. Watching in horror as I type this out. I believe it. But do you know who's not depressed? Those super straight people who are getting on with their lives and being happy. They're not depressed. Watching in horror as I type this out. Look at you. You can call me a very old boomer. That's fair. Very old boomer MILF. Of course, it's not just Gen Z that uses cryptic, provocative discourse style. I originally started this when, out of frustration that millennial SJW activists were attempting to communicate basically true and important ideas in an extremely inarticulate, irrational, sloganeering, dogmatic, no, I will not elaborate on that, and if you disagree, you're the enemy, rhetorical mode that was off-putting to almost everyone. So it's the optics that are the problem, not the constant, intellectual stew these people have found themselves in. And now that Gen Z is leading the online discourse, I find myself irritated by the same rhetorical trends that used to bother me in millennials. But that's too bad, isn't it? It's too bad. They can't get out of it because of the way that they think. So what's the solution here? Well, there is no solution. There's just Marcuse's just endless deconstruction. Nothing means anything, and anyone who wants something to have a meaningful connection to the world is cast out as a heretic, which is how the TERFs found themselves on the far right. We would like something about the way we think to have a connection to the reality of what we are. That's right, you're a fascist. Get out.
So you want to make the prediction, 2022, ContraPoints becomes far right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventually, ContraPoints is going to be sent something like this and be like, okay, look, that is a good point, but, that makes me look like a lunatic. That makes the rest of us look like lunatics. And that means the people on the outside are looking at a group of lunatics.
It's Lindsay Ellis all over again.
Yes.
You push this, you end up in exactly the milieu you supported.
Yes. And you are lunatics.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go over to lotuseaters.com to subscribe to get access to all the premium content we have.
The way the site works is that you have bronze, silver, and gold tier subscriptions. The bronze being £5 a month and allows you to get access to all of the premium content and leave comments on the articles. And we've got a new feature for the silver tier, and the silver and gold tier, which is having all of the premium articles accompanied by an audio track of a very smooth British voice reading, as you can see on the screen there. It's only an 11-minute listen, or it's, however long it takes you to read the article. So that's for convenience. So that's for gold and silver members. And we've also got all of our regular great content, which we're all really proud of. I mean, the premium podcast we have here is Progressing to Destruction, where that's just a lot of work, where it went into examining exactly what the consequences of mass immigration have been in Britain. And this was a great deal of effort to put together, and we didn't really want it being taken down from YouTube or anywhere else, so we're hosting it on our site, and we're very pleased with, what is, I suppose, a bit of a negative response, but not because of anything we've done, but because of the facts of the matter, it seems. But we also do various other premium podcasts, like The Contemplations, such as Are There Human Rights? Well, it depends on whose definition of what a human right you are using is. And of course, we do our regular history podcast called Epochs. This week's was The Sea People, the Terror of the Bronze Age. I really enjoyed doing this one because there was a great collapse about 3,000 years ago of the entire economy of the Eastern Mediterranean, and it seems that a bunch of piratical raiders may have been partially responsible for that, and possibly inspired the Trojan cycle from Homer. So we discussed that in that. And of course, we do our book club. For some reason, I decided that we'd highlight the George Orwell ones that we've been doing. So we've got his Road to Wigan Pier, and of course, the classic 1984. And I'll probably do Shooting an Elephant next. Have you ever read that?
Not heard of it.
It's really interesting. It's about George Orwell's time as a colonial administrator and police officer in Burma. And at one point in his narrative, an elephant goes on the rampage in a village and is killing people and destroying houses. So he has to go down and shoot it. And it is an absolutely fascinating look at the sort of colonial dynamics. The reason I haven't done a book club this month so far is because I'm currently going through the Critical Race Theory Bible. As you can see, it's 500 pages long, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And there are going to be many very in-depth book clubs coming out of that, because the things they believe are crazy and conservatives need to know about them.
But anyway, if you'd like access to all that premium content, please go over to lotuseaters.com, subscribe. Thank you.